Hey fellow tankers, Mobius Y here with another World of Tanks console related video. Hope you all have enjoyed your holidays recently. I know I did. I took some time off from both making videos. This is my first one in 3 weeks, sorry. And I didn't stream for a week there. Just took a little time off to myself, kept to myself so I could just enjoy playing some games on the Xbox One, more or less in private. So this really isn't the video that I wanted to kick off 2017 with, but I decided it's long past time that I stopped procrastinating on making this video. Now, there's not going to be any gameplay in this video, and it's probably going to wind up being fairly long. I'm just warning you ahead of time, so I do apologize for that. I have a lot of subject matter to cover. Also, there's a very good bet that I'm going to be offending some or all of you in this video, and I'm okay with that. There's two reasons behind why I'll probably offend a bunch of you. One, the fanboys and yes men. I don't mean that in a derogatory term either. For World of Tanks console, I'm basically going to be highlighting issues with your favorite game. I understand people will get upset over that. I simply do not fault you. I'm okay with that. The other thing too is I'm going to be going over some very, very strong opinions in this video, and people these days don't really seem to like opinions. Again, I can live with that. If you're upset at me over that, that's okay. Now, the few of you who may have seen Terra Genocide's video that he released about a month and a half ago, the week of the Black Friday event that was going on, you might hear me reiterating some of the issues that he has echoed in that same video. So you're probably hearing me giving the same sentiments over that video. And I'm basically just going to be going over my issues with the game right now, or should I say the issues with the game right now, and why I'm not playing World of Tanks console as much as I used to, as much as I'd honestly like to. Now, before I really start into this, I do want to say that I don't dislike the game. I love World of Tanks console. I really wish that I had the motivation and the drive to play it more, to be totally honest. But as I go over all these issues with the game right now, hopefully you'll understand better just why I'm not playing it as much as I really want to. As I said, it's not that I don't want to. I want to play the game, but every time I think about it, I just go, but you know what? There's this, that, and the other thing, and yeah, you know, I just don't really feel like it all of a sudden. And the unfortunate thing is that a large majority of these issues could not necessarily be solved by wargaming, but could at least be alleviated by wargaming if they made an effort to kind of correct them, so to speak. And there really hasn't been any effort in a long time in dealing with that. Now, that it's not exactly any issues that have come up recently. Some of these issues have been pervasive since the Xbox 360 launch back in 2014. February, March of 2014, more or less. So almost the full 3 years ago since this game first launched on the Xbox 360 version. There's a couple of these issues that have been around since then. So it's nothing recent, and it's not any one particular thing. It's a number of things that have accumulated over time, and last year in particular, the second half of 2016, it's just kind of started to put World of Tanks console down a path that I really don't want to see it go down, which having the same end result of players are just leaving the game for some of these, if not all of these reasons. And some of the oldest issues with the game, as I said, that have been pervasive since 360 launch. There's two in particular, and the very first one is there's a total lack of support for new players in the game right now. It's a lot better than when it used to be when I started playing. When I started playing, you loaded up the game, you jumped into your garage, and you had a tier 1 tech tree tank for each nation that was in the game. When I started playing, there were 3 nations. So we got the Lowell Tractor for Germany, we got the T1 Cunningham for the USA, and we got the Medium 1 for the Great Britain tech tree. That's it. Once the Russian tech tree was implemented, we got an MS1 in the garage. Once we got the French tech tree later in that week, we were given a Renault FC in the garage. That's it. There was none of these tutorial things where you're taking into battles against AI, where you have that head that gives you the tips and the walkthrough on how to research packages and all that. When I started playing, it was nothing but the main tutorial, which is still there and is still a pretty good tutorial for helping players figure out the controls and whatnot, and the tutorial videos, which I haven't seen on there in a very long time. I think you can still find them on YouTube. Don't get me wrong, those videos are very well done, but they simply do not highlight the serious nuances that a new player should be picking up on. It kind of focuses on the wrong aspects of the game altogether. As I said, the tutorials have drastically improved, but there is no mention of outside resources from either the forums or from other community contributors on YouTube. For example, there's no kind of loading screen that pops up for new players with less than 2,000 battles that says, do you want to learn more? Do you want to get better at the game? Check out this video from the Beard Guys, 10 tips that you might not know, or 10 ways to be a better tanker, or a pop-up in one of the blades in the garage that says, would you like to learn more? Check out these new player tips from Cosmic Carry on YouTube. Or would you like to better manage your silver? Check out Managing Your Silver by Joe the Frogman on the forums. There's nothing like that in the game. Instead, when we do get the What's New tab, which shows up when you first load into the game, when it's where it says Multiplayer, Platoon, Team Training, Proving Grounds, and then the What's New tab at the bottom. No, when the What's New tab was first introduced, it was used as another advertisement for the Dark Horse comic books. Really? The same thing was with all the loading screens. The loading screens had advertisements galore for the Dark Horse comic books, the World of Tanks rollout comic books. No mention of YouTubers or useful forum threads that you could go to for new players. Nothing like that. So there's really not much support for the new players in this game, and it's extremely unfortunate. There's also no kind of tutorial showing you how to study up on other tanks. Now that we have the module viewer where you can also check out the armor profiles of the tanks, there hasn't been any kind of tutorial introduced on how to use that so that new players can understand what they're looking at, what kind of information they're looking at, so that they can better process it and better understand what it is that they're viewing on their screen. So that's one issue that I have honestly complained about pretty much since the game started, since I started playing the game as well, to be totally honest. The other major issue that has been around since the game first launched on 360 is the player base is very ignorant. Unfortunately, wargaming can do almost nothing about this issue, and that's totally fine. But the player base on World of Tanks, I don't know if it's because it's a free-to-play game, or if it's because it's the kind of free-to-play game, the kind of game that attracts a slightly older male player base. Because let's face it, the vast majority of people that are playing World of Tanks are guys in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, or even older, compared to kids playing Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto 5. But it's amazing how ignorant these people are and how arrogant they are too. When you're trying to be constructive and help them better their game, either in game chat or through a message or something like that, and just say, hey man, try positioning yourself over here. You know, you can conceal yourself better. You're in a really good position where only your turret's showing. That's called hull down. It's a very effective position. Instead, they scream back at you, don't tell me how to play my tank. I have 8 tier 10s in my garage. I know what to do. Good for you. I have 20 tier 10s researched. Does that make me an automatic better player than you? No, it doesn't. And these are things that simply are not really educated, again, to new players, but to players in general. Unfortunately, as I said, there's not really anything Wargaming can do on this, aside from possibly provide more outside help. But when players first come into the game, their interpretation is that when they're jumping into the game, by the time they reach tiers 3 and 4, and they're getting their asses kicked by tier 6 and tier 7 tanks, tier 5 and tier 6 tanks, that just seem like absolute beast machines. They go, wow, I really want to get to the higher tiers. Then they get to those tiers, and they start getting their butts kicked by tier 7 and tier 8 tanks. They go, wow, obviously, higher tier tanks are just flat out better in every way. I need to get to tier 10. and then they get to tier 10 without really learning the finer aspects of the game. So you wind up with the new players that don't really know what they're doing because, simply put, there's no real support for them. But you also get the ignorant players that have no desire to learn or anything like that. And for a lot of players, that is completely understandable, because I do understand the concept of playing casually and playing for fun. Don't get me wrong. I understand that 100%. I've been gaming since as long as I can remember. I've been gaming online since about 2005, 2006 on my 360. I recall people split screening in Halo 2 and Halo 3 all the time, and they're just out there to have a good time, charging other people down with a starting weapon when the other guy's holding rockets. They get blown up by the rockets. They don't care. They almost killed the guy. They're having fun. It's cool. I totally understand that. Not everybody wants to get better at the game, but there's no real incentives to try and learn the game either. So the result is a very ignorant player base. And as I said, unfortunately, there's not much wargaming can do about that. But it is what it is. One of the more recent issues with the game has been a largely money-based issue. And this causes less people spending money on the game. And when less people are spending money on the game, it's bad for the game overall, because less income means less revenue to develop other aspects of the game. Like, give us fun game modes, give us new tech trees, give us new nations that not even the PC version has seen before. Things like that. And this issue comes up because of numerous things happening. For example, ridiculous bundle prices and increasing the prices of flag tanks for basically no reason. When you have really high-priced bundles that hardly anybody really wants to pay to begin with, yeah, even a few people buying those bundles will earn wargaming a lot of money. But 95% of the players who see that are just going to go, that's ridiculous. Why would I pay $150, $200 for a bundle of virtual tanks? That's insane. And the result is just less people want to spend their money on it. It's a similar thing when new premium tanks are being put behind these giant paywalls, forcing people to spend a lot of money to buy them. And this wasn't an issue. I brought this up with the Black Edition fiasco, the Black Tank Edition fiasco video that I put out, over a month ago. That wasn't the start of it, though. I mean, this goes all the way back to, for example, the Kanonen Jagdpanzer, when it was being sold in a bundle with the Tiger 1 hammer. And the Tiger 1 hammer was a tank that you could earn for free at the time. But you were being forced to buy it if you wanted the Kanonen Jagdpanzer. And then after getting the Kanonen Jagdpanzer, a lot of people figured out, wow, this tank actually isn't that great anyways. Well, sorry to hear that, but you have already spent your $80 to get the dang thing. It's ludicrous. It's really silly. It causes people to be less likely to spend money on the game, especially newer players, when they look at that and see a really big price tag. Speaking of big price tags, the other thing that is causing people to spend less money is when bundle prices are being inflated due to gimmicks like the tanks having equipment or something like that. If you recall, I brought up something about Waving the Flag 2, which was a flag tank bundle during the Black Friday event in late 2016. It gave you 2 Tier 8 premiums and 1 Tier 6 premium. They were all flag tanks, the Cromwell Knight, the T-54 First Prototype Motherland, and the FCM 50-ton Liberté. So those were 3 flag tanks being offered for about 30,000 gold, and it's because they had things like equipment on them. When a bundle, or when a tank, I should say, is being given equipment in the bundle, Wargaming jacks the price up because they factor in the price of the equipment in silver, converting that silver to how much gold it would cost to get that much silver, and then they add that much gold to the cost of the bundle, which is why the Waving the Flag 2 bundle cost 30,000 gold as opposed to almost the exact same bundle a year before for Black Friday, where you got the Super Pershing Freedom variant, the FCM 50-ton Liberté, and the Cromwell Knight for about half the price. With no equipment, it was something like 13,000 gold. With equipment on all 3 tanks, it was 18 or 19,000 gold or something like that. So yeah, tanks with the equipment means more gold. But these three flag tanks being offered around Black Friday for 2016, you didn't have a choice. They came with the equipment, which resulted in an inflated price of 30,000 gold. That's over $100 for 3 premium tanks. That's insane. And it's not the only issue that was going on there. It was something that had been complained about for a couple months, pretty much since the first fiasco with the Kanonen Jagdpanzer and the Tiger 1 hammer. Excuse me. And there was no real response from Wargaming on the paywalling of tanks, the inflating of the bundle prices, or any of that until at least a week or two later, when the Beard guys made a video complaining about these very things. Why has there been nothing said? Why does it take the biggest World of Tanks console YouTuber to make a video before there's even the slightest response? And the response was, simply put, it was 2 sentences, and basically it just said, "Thank you for bringing up these issues with us. We will address it with the dev team and discuss better plans for the future," or something like that. That's the only response, and it took the biggest YouTube contributor for World of Tanks console before any reply was made? I don't doubt that Wargaming knew about the community's concerns long before that video came out, but they never said anything. It wasn't until that moment that there was a response given. I mean, it is what it is. And that kind of ties into the next set of issues that I want to go into, which are community-based issues. The first point that I really have here is that there's almost zero support for community contributors, especially those outside Club Wargaming. A vid now and then in the Battle Heroes of the Week is definitely better than nothing, but there is room for so much more. As I said, the aforementioned loading screens, or in the What's New section, putting a video up of for new players, for not just new players, going, hey, if you want to learn how to better yourself at this game, if you want to learn some cool tips, check out this video by Sins UK or Jack the Ripper. Or if for more veteran players, they want to see a video of Ben from the Beard Guys 3-marking his Walker Bulldog. Go check out this awesome gameplay. Or they want to see a video from Captain Beardface having an awesome game in his T110E5. Go check out this awesome video. Maybe you'll grasp a thing or two on how to play the T110E5 in the game. There's almost no support like that going on, aside from, as I said, the weekly battle heroes, and before that, the community heroes, which was kind of the older version of the weekly battle heroes. Now, don't get me wrong, I've had a couple of my videos in my channel promoted through the community heroes, and if I recall right, the Cromwell Knight review was even posted on the World of Tanks Facebook account. World of Tanks or Wargaming? It doesn't matter. So I've had the bones thrown at me, and I was very appreciative of that. But as I said, there is simply so much more that can be done for community contributors, and not just people who make the videos and all that jazz, but also the people who make really useful thread guides. Beta 852's guide on everything in World of Tanks. Super worth it read. Yeah, it's a lot of reading, but anybody can learn anything from useful things like that. I mean, there's not really any of that going on. And as I said, especially for those outside Club Wargaming. And I kind of feel bad for the guys that are in Club Wargaming, guys like Sins and them, because they're also getting the same kind of treatment. They basically have to fight for every little thing that is given to them from Wargaming, and it's really sad. On top of that, there's very little feedback given to the community right now, especially the forums. I remember in the first year that this game was out, even the leader of the dev team, known as Pain God, TJ Wagner, he was on the forums just about daily and posted some kind of reply to something, whether it was serious or whether it was just being funny. It was almost daily where that was happening throughout 2014. I'm not sure if it's just because his schedule is getting busier or whatnot, but it's not just him. It's Wargaming staff in general are really not replying that much, aside from Max Chaos 24. And Max does his best, but there is a lot of little things that he slips up on, like the wrong price for the Tech Tree IS-6, for example. And you can't really put all that responsibility on one guy either. There's obviously a team that responds to support tickets and the general customer support aspect. People giving in tickets, having problems with purchasing gold or anything like that. But as I said, there's really very little feedback given to good ideas for new tank lines. For example, Joko 3000 has posted a crapload of good ideas for new tank lines, either in established tech trees, for example, the British tech tree, or making a new tech tree full of brand new tanks that nobody's ever seen on any version of World of Tanks before. There's no real feedback given to those on the forums. And yet somebody posts a thread saying, I just hit my 2-year anniversary on World of Tanks, and 2 Wargaming staff reply within the first 3 minutes of the thread being posted saying, hey, good job, glad to see you hit your 2-year anniversary. Really? It just seems a little biased. It's a little silly. And outside the very, very apparent lack of support for community contributors, there's also pretty much zero support for current community tournaments. Wargaming gives out the prizes, and they give out really good prizes lately. They've gotten progressively better. I mean, the winners of the first World of Tanks Console League, WCL, which went to Top Notch Gaming, TNG, I believe they got 25,000 gold, so $100 worth of gold. They got a year's worth of free premium time, so $100 worth of premium time. I think they got 10 million silver and a free premium tank of their choice without tier restrictions. And those that got second place, which I believe went to Precision Gaming or PG, I believe they got pretty much half of all that. I think they got 6 months of premium time, 5 million silver, 12,000 gold, and their choice of a premium tank of the tech tree that I believe was tier 6 or lower. Something like that. But those are awesome prizes. That's really cool. And myself and pretty much anybody who is in these tournaments is thankful that Wargaming provides those awesome prizes. There's also the occasional hosting on Wargaming's Twitch channel for live streaming some of these matches. But beyond those two things, providing the prizes and occasionally letting one of the community contributing Twitch streamers to stream the match that they are watching on Wargaming's Twitch, that is all the support that Wargaming gives. They don't really do anything else. The tournaments are completely community organized, community staffed, community run, community operated. They are played by community members, and most of the promotions that for the tournaments themselves are done by community members as well. There's the odd post here and there in the news feed about, hey, the finals for WCT, which was the old World of Tanks community tournament before WCL, is on such and such date. Come watch the match on, TVDL 2000's Twitch channel or something like that. But there's zero support for the community-run tournaments beyond those. Like, very, very minimal effort on their part, and it's really unfortunate. There is an obvious interest in these tournaments because the first WCL had over 200 clans with teams sign up for it. That might sound like a small number, and in retrospect, compared to the overall player base that plays World of Tanks console, yeah, it is kind of a small number. But at the same time, that's huge compared to the first couple tournaments where the maximum allowed was only 32 teams or 64 teams or whatever it was for the first few tournaments. So the appeal, the interest has obviously skyrocketed, and it's obviously there. But there is zero effort on Wargaming's part in promoting these, and it's really unfortunate. One of the next issues to go over, this one is probably where I'm going to upset the most people. There are some major balance issues with this game. Granted, each tier has its issues, starting with, say, the T-22 prototype at Tier 1, which is supposed to be the introduction tank for new players. And that in and of itself is kind of a joke. You jump back into Tier 1 now, there's a lot of T-22 prototypes. But you've also got tanks like the Su-85B at Tier 4, the Panzer V-4 at Tier 5, which is a premium tank, and that's a really good example of pay-to-win, unfortunately. And never mind the fact that Tier 10 right now is a complete mess, and it's largely because of Tier 10 tank destroyers. There, I've said it, I'm sure some of you are going to leave right about now. But in their current state, Tier 10 TDs right now, compared to other tanks in other classes at the same tier, they are straight up overpowered in terms of overall performance by comparison. I'm a medium tank player, so I more than likely have a biased viewpoint. In fact, I'm not going to deny that my viewpoint is not biased, because it totally is. And I've gotten some quirky tier 10 medium tanks. I've played some of them for several games. The M48 Patton, the 121, the Object 430. But why would I play something like an Object 430 when I can play a T110E3 or an Object 268 tank destroyer? Well, the Object 430's deal is that it has really good DPM for a medium tank. It has the best damage per minute out of any tier 10 medium tank. Its base value, without any equipment or any crew skills to increase its reload speed, is 3,000 damage per minute. That's quite a lot of damage per minute, and it owes it to the really high rate of fire of the gun. Now, let's take a look at the T110E3, which has almost 2,800 damage per minute. Okay, so a minor increase in damage per minute. But at the same time, if I was to play a T110E3 over an Object 430, I have better frontal hull armor profile, I have better gun depression, I have better alpha damage at 850 compared to 320 with the Object 430. I have way better penetration. The base penetration is 295, and I think the APCR is something ridiculous like 375. And I have comparable view range in a tank destroyer class. And the only minor sacrifice to make for this is in concealment, because the Object 430 is a ninja compared to even a T110E3. Overall mobility, the T110E3 is simply not as quick as an Object 430, and the lack of a turret. Those are some very minor sacrifices to make for better overall firepower, better overall frontal armor, and comparable spotting capabilities. So why is there a reason to play an Object 430 over a T110E3? I see a hull down E100 in any tier 10 medium tank, and in order to penetrate his turret face in any tier 10 medium tank, I would either have to aim for the bar on the top of the E100's turret, or load the premium ammo and just shoot right through its turret face at the cost of way more silver. But if I'm in a tier 10 tank destroyer, I don't have to do that. I just use standard ammo to go straight through the thing's turret face. That's a little silly. And the Object 268 is in the same boat. You have a minor sacrifice in mobility, less so than the T110E3, because the 268 is quite a bit faster. The rotation, the hull traverse is still kind of poor, just like the T110E3, but you have comparable concealment in the Object 268 to the Object 430, especially while stationary, and you still get all those benefits of much higher penetration, much higher alpha damage, and you've even got better damage per minute than the Object 430. The Object 268 has a base damage per minute of 3,090, so you're getting a tad better damage per minute than even the Object 430, which is supposed to have the best damage per minute out of all the tier 10 medium tanks. And yet I've got even more penetration with standard rounds at 303 millimeters of penetration with standard ammo, and I think the heat ammo used to be 450 when I played it, but I think it's now only 395, which is still ridiculous. That's just insane. There's no reason to play an Object 430 over those two tanks. I forgot to mention that the overall accuracy of the Object 268 and the T110E3 is still better than the Object 430. When all three tanks line up and fully aim in, the Object 430's overall accuracy is worse than both of those tanks as well. So why is there a reason to play an Object 430 over either of these two tanks? Well, obviously it's not for the damage per minute equivalent, because, as I said, these other two tank destroyers completely outclass it in terms of overall performance, because they're simply so much better in other aspects. It is what it is. And it's a large part of the reason why tier 10 matches these days, it's very rare to go several matches in a row without seeing matches horribly horribly populated with tier 10 tank destroyers. whenever anybody I know, or you yourself, or probably anybody you know, hops into a tier 10 tank, there is a lot of tier 10 tank destroyers, and it's simply because they are so bloody overpowered. There's not really any reason to play anything else. You've also got tanks like the Waffenträger E100, which exists for some reason. That tank is flat out broken. It's a tank of extremes. It has some of the best firepower in the game. It has extremely good hull armor. It's fairly mobile, and yet to balance it out, it has a really long reload time in its clip, and it has horrible turret armor. It's a tank of complete extremes. What it's good at, it's extremely good at. What it's bad at, it's extremely bad at. A tank that is that broken is completely impossible to balance. That's why the PC version got rid of it. Yet, we're probably not going to get rid of it. I know Pain God himself doesn't like the idea of removing tanks, but removing the waffle would simply be better for the game in general. That's why the PC version got rid of it. And I know console is supposed to be different and not necessarily follow the PC version to the letter, but it would be nice if the console version took some lessons from the PC version and looked at the overall gameplay of the PC version, and was able to make their own kind of decisions, or the developers were able to make their own kind of decisions based on past history in both the PC and the console version. Now, I'm going on and on about the tank destroyers, and I did mention the Object 430, but the simple fact is, if Tier 10 tank destroyers got an overall nerf, then Tier 10 medium tanks would be a little too dominant, which they kind of are in the PC version right now. It's not like it is for console in terms of the tank destroyers being blatantly overpowered, where one class is clearly dominant over another. In the PC version, it's a heck of a lot more balanced out, but the medium tanks are significantly more dominant. Well, not really significant. They are quite a bit more dominant at the higher tiers on the PC version, because the TDs got nerfed. But everything is on a much more comparable scale. And if that were the case on the console version, a couple of the medium tanks would have to be rebalanced as well. The M48 Patton is simply outclassed in every aspect. Right now, it's the worst Tier 10 medium tank, especially since we've got the Centurion Action 10 that got changed out from the FE4202. The M48 Patton it's not a bad tank. It has simply been what's called power creeped, where the most recent additions to Tier 10 medium tanks are just better in several aspects, or all aspects, over a tank like the M48 Patton, that unfortunately the M48 Patton is just left in the dust. So in all honesty, Tier 10 tank destroyers being overpowered, if those got nerfed, there would have to be some Tier 10 medium tanks that also get reduced in performance. There's no real reason to take an M48 Patton out onto the battlefield over a T62A or an Object 140, because either of those Russian medium tanks are just flat out better in every way to the M48 Patton. And it's unfortunate. So a large part of the reason why people are against the entire idea of tanks being nerfed in general, but particularly Tier 10 TD nerfs, is because everybody thinks that it would cause some kind of cascade effect where if Tier 10 tank destroyers were nerfed, well, then a different class would be overpowered, and then those would get nerfed, and then a different class would be overpowered, so on and so forth. And there would never be true balance. But at the same time, there's no harm in trying. What is wrong with trying to balance out the game better than it already is? I don't understand the logic behind, oh no, we don't want to balance anything because it might result in something else being overpowered. Like, that makes no sense to do when you could just try balancing things out, and if it doesn't work 100%, at least things are more balanced than they are now. It is what it is. And some of the balance changes, to be totally honest, have been absolutely silly. Like the Foch 155 getting nerfed. That was really stupid. It just flat out was. The decision making behind wargaming for buffing or nerfing tanks on World of Tanks console version is they look at the performance data from the overall player base. And in my opinion, that is a completely wrong way to go about it, because you're also factoring in the fact that terrible players are playing the tank. And let's face it, a good 60 to 70% of the players on World of Tanks console are terrible players. But they consist of the largest population of people playing the game. And when they keep getting overpowered tanks like the T-110E3, like the Object 268, like the Waffle, like the 183 Death Star, and they keep doing terribly in it, it brings the performance statistics of that tank down so that it looks more balanced to wargaming. The Foch 155 got nerfed because only decent and good players got it at the time. Because let's face it, the French TD line is absolutely god-awful pretty much until you get a fully upgraded Tier 8 French tank destroyer. The Foch at Tier 9 is pretty good. And the Foch 155 at Tier 10 is pretty good, but it is still technically outclassed in some aspect or another by just about any other tank destroyer in the game, save for maybe mobility, because the Foch 155 is really mobile. So because of that, bad players that don't have the free XP just skip large sections of that line. They didn't grind for it. It was largely players that knew what they were doing. Decent players, good players, and really good players that got the Foch 155. And because it was pretty much only good players playing the tank, it looked like it was overperforming. That's why it got nerfed. It's a totally silly way to go about it. Making a mediocre tank that bad players are going to suck in even worse is not going to make those bad players suck in it any less than they already would. So now even less people are getting a Foch 155. It's just a silly way to go about things. It's a similar thing behind the T110E5, not so much the T110E5, but more the Tiger 1 getting absolutely overbuffed. The E5 was already a really good jack-of-all-trades kind of heavy tank, but now it's kind of a master of all trades because the HD reworking gave it an even better frontal armor profile. So now the lower plate is significantly more difficult to penetrate without a Tier 10 tank destroyer. And the little commander's hatch on top of the turret isn't really a weak spot unless, again, you have a Tier 10 tank destroyer with ridiculous penetration or you load premium rounds. It kind of sounds a little silly, but the Tiger 1's a way better example of a tank getting overbuffed. The reason why the tank got buffed is because newer players joining the game, who are probably joined due to historical accuracy reasons, they want the Tiger 1 because the Tiger 1 just has that mantra about it from World War II. It was that unbeatable Tiger 1 tank. It was a monster on the battlefield, this, that, and the other thing. So they go, wow, check it out. They actually have the Tiger 1 available in this game. I want that tank. Then they get the tank, and they don't really understand the finer aspects of the game. They get their asses handed to them in that tank, and it drags those performance stats down. So it looks like it's underperforming and is in need of a buff. It is, in my strong opinion, just a stupid way to go about rebalancing tanks. I really feel that Wargaming should take more of an approach like BioWare did for Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. BioWare actually buffed or nerfed certain weapons and character abilities and stuff like that in the multiplayer game based on how popular they were. Not just how well they were performing, also how popular they were. If a certain weapon or a certain character's ability was being used in a very high percentage of games over other weapons, they wanted to make other weapons or other abilities more viable, so they would nerf that one that's getting used way too much. Which, in my opinion, was a much better way to go about it. It also did lead to some weird and kind of senseless nerfs or buffs. I mean, every way you go about it does, but it still resulted in a much more balanced experience where most any setup was viable. Now, don't get me wrong, by the term balanced, that doesn't mean that every tank is exactly the same. Every tank should be different. A T110E5 should not be the same as a 113. But right now there is no reason to play a 113 over a T110E5 because the T110E5 has a way better frontal armor profile, it has better gun handling, and it has better overall... what's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say mobility, but that's not quite true because the 113 itself is pretty quick. So all these benefits that the E5 gets over the 113, and the only thing the 113 has that's really better than the T110E5 is raw alpha damage. Meanwhile, you're sacrificing worse frontal armor profile, worse turret armor, worse lower plate armor. I mean, the list goes on. It's just silly. That's not what balance is. Balance is about making every tank or every tank class a viable option to play. The sole reasons behind playing a 113 over a T110E5 shouldn't simply be because it's for variety and it's for fun, which should be reason number one and reason number two for anything that goes on in this game. I completely agree with that, but at the same time, it also completely nullifies the viability of one tank over another if you simply want to perform well in a more kind of competitive nature for more competitive players or in a competitive environment. It's just silly. And the last kind of thing that is a serious balance issue is artillery. It is simply not really what I think the devs really want it to be, or at least with the original concept of World of Tanks. It needs to be reworked, simply put. But in particular, the U.S. artillery is massively overpowered at just about every tier. And I'm looking at you, M5355. Anybody who has gone down an artillery line and played artillery knows all about the M5355. I don't think there's more I really need to say over that. But for the most part, U.S. artillery at just about every tier is flat out superior to every other nation's artillery. They have really good shell arcs, so they can shoot over hills and hit things behind ridges and behind hard cover like that. They have really good splash damage. They can land the shell right next to a building where a tank is hiding and still cause some damage to it. They have insanely high alpha damage. If they actually hit the tank and penetrate, it will do a crap ton of damage. And a lot of them have really good rates of fire on top of all that, which just sounds absolutely silly. And the M53-55 is easily the biggest culprit of that because it has the equivalent of a turret, even though it can't turn 360 degrees. It has the equivalent of a turret sitting on top of a fairly mobile chassis that can easily kick up to about 40 kilometers an hour, with a gun that has an average alpha damage on its HE rounds of 1850. 1850, that's enough to one-shot almost any Tier 9 heavy tank in the game. And it also has extremely fast reload and a good aim time with pretty decent overall accuracy. Yes, RNG balances it by occasionally going, nope, that shell's going in another zip code, and then artillery misses and does no damage. But RNG should not be the balancing factor behind an entire class of tank. It makes them frustrating to play, and it makes them frustrating to play against. When you spend all that time aiming in your shot, you pull the trigger, and as I said, RNG just says, nope, shell lands in another zip code, you don't even splash the guy, you do 0 damage. That's absolutely aggravating. You just spent 15 seconds aiming in on the guy, and he sat still for long enough for the shell to fly over there, and it should have hit, but the game just decided, nope. And it's also frustrating for somebody who is in a key choke point position, who is playing their tank appropriately. They're nice and hull down, they're baiting shots, they're blocking shots for their teammates if they're in a heavy tank, for example. They're playing very conservatively, saving a lot of their HP, dishing out a lot of damage on their way to a really high damage game, or a Top Gun or better. And then because RNG just gives somebody the thumbs up, an artillery shell flies over the hill, hits them in the top of the turret, penetrates their super weak point of armor, and takes off 80% of their HP while killing 3 crew members, damaging the ammo rack, and setting the engine on fire. How can either of those aspects not be frustrating for somebody on the giving or the receiving end of the artillery class? It's just silly. It straight up needs to be reworked. But the first thing that needs to happen is some of these artillery pieces, honestly, they could do with a nerf, because some of them are just straight up overpowered over others. So that was a really long babble there. Apologies for that, but that is one big shtick out of all the issues in World of Tanks. There's also a couple issues in aspects of entertainment for the players. Kind of giving back to the player base as a kind of thank you for playing our game. Yes, in 2016, in particular, we got the premium tanks that we could earn. We've been given free premium tanks over the years. We got the Blitzen just at the end of 2016 for the Christmas holidays. But when's the last time we had double or triple XP weekends where you got double XP for the entire weekend, and it would even stack up with your ×2 win bonus, your ×2 first win bonus for the day. And then the rest of the day, you're still getting double XP. When's the last time we had a triple XP first win bonus on a weekend? When's the last time we had a bonus silver earning weekend? We haven't had anything like that in a very long time, as I kind of thank you to the players, encouraging them to keep playing, outside of the free tanks that you have to earn. And let's face it, the free tanks that you had to earn, some of them were just straight up aggravating, because the kill-based ops in particular, I think it was for the Tiger Hammer, that just encouraged people to hang back and camp and hold fire until the last possible moment when somebody's on super low HP and try to steal the kill, basically. It encouraged awful gameplay there. And the other thing, like major deals like 50% off a year premium time, in 2016, that was offered for one day. It was offered for Black Friday only, where you could get a year's worth of premium time for 50% off. So a year's worth of premium time for 12,000 gold. That's $50 Canadian. Normally a year's worth of premium time, I would have to get the 25,000 gold package, which is $100 Canadian, and then spend the 24,000 gold on a year's worth of premium time. On Black Friday, they offer it for 50% off. But in 2016, it was only available for the one day. In 2015, that offer was available for the whole weekend, at least 3 days. Why is that time span suddenly being cut so short? It just seems like a really, really silly ploy to try and force people to log in on a Friday and pay for the year of premium time. I honestly believe that Wargaming could have gotten a lot more money out of that deal if they extended the time. Because I don't doubt there's even a few of you guys watching this, if you're still here, that missed out on that deal because it was only available for the one day. And it wasn't said anywhere that that deal was only available for the one day. It just seems silly. It's kind of like flinging another middle finger to the player base. It just seems silly, and that kind of ties into the odd decision making issues that have been going on, particularly in the last half of 2016. Like some of these really pointless community requested features, like crew ranks and changes to the kill feed. Where did these come from? Which community requested these? 4chan? Reddit? They just seem like really stupid things to either add in or change in the game, which I don't think anybody really cared for. There was already a way in the garage to see how many skills your crew had on it. There was a little number there. It was on the lower right hand side, and it was in the very bottom when you went to the crew tab. It told you exactly how many crew skills that one crew had either trained or was training at the current time. Now we've got these pointless ranks where the crew ranks up as they earn more crew XP. It's completely tied into how many crew skills they have learned. It's such a pointless addition. You're telling me that there was resources and time spent into adding that into the game, and there was also resources and time spent into changing the kill feed for almost no reason? I don't know about you guys, but when I'm platooned with somebody, he rounds the corner, he blows up. I know what tank my platoon mate is in. I don't need the kill feed telling me what tank right next to me just died. I need to know what tank just killed that person, so that if it was a Waffle E100 that just fired twice and clipped out the last of his HP, I would rather know that. Okay, he's still got 4 shots left. I don't want to round that corner. Or if it was a Death Star that just shot off the last of his HP. Okay, the Death Star just fired. I can round this corner. He's on a 30-second reload. I can come around and try and close the distance. Why was that changed? And why was it changed without asking the community beforehand, instead of just going, okay, let's just change this and see if a shitstorm happens, and then after the shitstorm happens, then start asking the forums and other communities, hey, what would you like to see in the kill feed? It just seems like a really, really dumb kind of decision-making process. Not to mention the constant decisions to just keep remaking variants of old maps as opposed to trying to come up with actual new maps, possibly console exclusive maps, and yet when these weather variants of old maps come out, we're still being told, hey, it's a new map. It's new. It's a 100% new map because it wasn't in the game before, so it's new. That just sounds kind of silly. It's almost as silly as the whole reskinning of old premium tanks and then selling these premium tank reskins and telling the player base, hey, look, it's a new tank because it's new. It's got a different paint job. It's new. It's just really odd decision making on Wargaming's part. It doesn't really make a heck of a lot of sense, and it just makes it seem like they're not really as organized as we'd like them to be, I suppose. It takes away a lot of people's faith that the Wargaming's development of World of Tanks console is on the right track, so to speak. That they really know what they want to do in the game. They have aspirations for how they want their game to be, what they want to add into their game. It really takes a lot of people's faith away that they do know what they're doing, because it seems like they don't when stuff like that goes on. And looks like we're closing in on the last little bit here, I promise. So this shouldn't take too much longer. The issues with clans. Now, there's not issues with clans or people in clans specifically, but there is issues behind the entire aspect of clans. And the very first thing is that right now in the game, there is 0 clan support. People still have to pay 850 gold to make a clan. For what? For a little tag next to your name in the player screen? That's all you get out of it. That's $5 just so that you and friends of yours can have a fancy little tag that basically just shows, hey, we roll together a lot. Even though there's already numbers next to the platoons showing who's in what platoon and who's all platooned up and stuff like that. Because that wasn't enough. You pay the $5 for that clan tag, and then nothing more happens. There's no kind of Clan Wars competition mode, which has been getting promised since, as far as I can remember, summer of 2014. So we're talking over 2.5 years that we've been told it's in development. And it's taking this long for anything to come out of it. Instead, we're stuck with the community-run tournaments, which, I will not lie, is better than nothing. But with the complete lack of an official kind of Clan Wars mode, the people that are interested in the tournament aspect of World of Tanks, they're stuck doing it in training rooms where every time they play, they have to pay for the ammo or any consumables that are used in that game. And there's no rewards out of it unless, as I said, they finish in the top echelon of clans. If I recall correctly, the last couple tournaments there was compensation for players who did participate in the tournaments because it cost silver to play these matches in training rooms. But these training rooms cost silver, and without the official Clan Wars mode, there isn't really anything to play for. You can't really jump into kind of a progressive mode where you're fighting over territories, and instead of just a one-time kind of prize offering in, say, a 10-on-10 tournament, you're not fighting over territories where every month or so you get gold based on how much territory you own. You get a small amount of silver based on how many territories you own. So there's 0 support for clans overall, and there's 0 support for clan tournaments right now too. And the tournaments have been going on for basically a year now. The first one I participated in, it was either late 2015 or very early 2016. It might have been the same tournament happening around the same time, and it just progressed into the new year in 2016. But they've been around for a long time. The interest is there. And as I said, there's just really 0 support for the community people that run and operate those things, but there's basically 0 support for the clans that participate in them as well. And there's zero support for the clans that want to participate in an event like that. There's no kind of clan platooning mode where it's basically public matches, except it's only platoons of clan members that are platooned together. There's no kind of ongoing sort of clan wars mode where you can earn free stuff like reward tanks or gold for free. There's nothing like that. You pay 850 gold, which is $5 for a clan tag, and that's all you get. And you can't even check your roster or anything like that in the game. You have to go to the website to check that stuff out. It's silly. The clan thing has been a highly requested feature since the game's inception on Xbox 360 edition in 2014. And it's been nothing but promises that things are in development. And the only thing we have to show for it right now is we now have clan tags. That's it. That's the only thing to really show for it after almost 3 years of development. It's probably just not high on their priority list, which is completely understandable. I mean, it is what it is. I lied. That was not the last issue. There is actually one thing I wanted to bring up. And this kind of encompasses a lot of these issues that I previously went over. There's issues with matchmaking. There straight up is. I don't think that there is a problem with the matchmaking the way it's set up right now. I'm not particularly against it or anything like that because I simply don't struggle with it. I've played the game enough. I've learned enough about the game where I can still have good games even when I'm bottom tier. Even when I'm bottom tier in a light tank, for example. I'm a tier 6 light tank in a tier 9 game. I can still have good games in those situations. The issues with matchmaking right now is, to be totally honest, the entire +2, -2 matchmaking kind of thing where a tank can see up to 2 tiers above it or 2 tiers below it either needs to be reworked to where that only starts to appear when you get up to, say, tiers 5 or 6, or it needs to be completely removed. One of the two. And the reason why I feel that at the very least it should be reworked so that the +2, -2 only shows up when you get into those mid tiers is because newer players, it caters more to the new players. You can get to a tier 3 in a matter of hours playing the game. Not even hours, a matter of games. The tier 1 tanks should take no time at all. Those would be maybe a dozen games, and then you have it fully upgraded. And you probably got the next tier tanks researched as well. The tier 2s will require about a dozen, maybe 2 dozen games. Without a premium account and for a new player who doesn't really know what they're doing, maybe 2 dozen games, and then they've probably got the next tier tanker researched. Then they hop into their tier 3 tank, and within the first 5 games, they're facing off against tier 5s that they've never seen before. Things like the KV-220 premium tank, or the KV-1, or the T-1 Heavy, or the Panzer V-4 premium tank. Tanks that they've never seen before, and that they really have no idea how to cope with them. They don't, because they're only 3 dozen games into the game. They haven't learned the aspects of, learning to flank, learning to aim for weak points, stuff like that. It's absolutely grueling to new players to be thrown into that kind of situation so early into the game. And that's a large part of the reason why my first 500 to 1,000 games, I honestly stayed in tier 2. Because I knew I was no good at the game at the time. And I figured that if I stuck in tier 2, I could at the very least learn where to go on certain maps. So I spent that time doing it. I was still terrible at the game, don't get me wrong, but that kind of matchmaking should seriously be restricted starting at either tiers 5 or 6, or should just be removed altogether. The +2, -2 matchmaking in the higher tiers in particular, like Circumflex has said, it's largely to have tier 9 and tier 10 tanks feel good about themselves. It's silly. There's no real reason for it, especially in those higher tiers. Tier 7 tanks are absolute cannon fodder for tier 9 tanks. Same thing with tier 8 tanks to tier 10 tanks. And I'm not speaking from my viewpoint. As I said, I can still, have a good game even when I'm bottom tier in my T32. And there's, almost 10 tier 10 tanks on either team. I can still have a good game out of that. But from an average player's perspective, those are insurmountable odds, and for their overall betterment and enjoyment of the player base, that should simply just be gotten rid of. And the other matchmaking issue is these 5-man platoons. I've said it, and I guarantee a lot of people are not going to agree with me on this, but 5-man platoons absolutely destroy the matchmaking. How many times has it happened where you have a group of guys, you're all playing your tier 7s, and you're in a 5-man platoon of tier 7s? How many times has it happened where the matchmaker balances out the platoons by throwing a 5-man platoon of tier 9s on the other team, and then everybody else is a random that's not platooned? That's how the matchmaker works. When you're in a platoon, it tries to match you up with another platoon of the similar size within the same battle tiers. It happens a lot where, yes, you'll be that 5-man platoon that's top tier, but it also means that there's another 5-man platoon that's bottom tier. So, it's kind of a 50-50 split there. But the 5-man platoons absolutely destroy the matchmaking. It needs to go back to 3-man platoons. Not only is it more fair for the overall players, because let's face it, a 5-man platoon of unicums or super unicums, now those are insurmountable odds, no matter who's on the other team, unless there's another 5-man platoon of super unicums. That's just not fun for an average player to play against, because they get absolutely smoked within the first few minutes of the game. So 5-man platoons should be reduced back down to 3. They were the most balanced for the matchmaker. They were the most fair for the matchmaker. It's a lot easier to deal with a 3-man platoon of bottom tier tanks against a 3-man platoon of top tier tanks, or vice versa. When a third of your team is bottom tier because they're in a 5-man platoon, while the other team gets a third of their team being top tier strictly because they're in a 5-man platoon, it's pretty unfair, and it's not something that average players really like to see. So it's something that, in my strong opinion, should be done away with. It means less socializing in the game. I totally get that. It means that, the casual players, as I previously mentioned, who just want to party up with their friends, maybe swill a few beers together online and have some fun. It means that they're less social. I do not disagree with that one bit. Unfortunately, for the good of the game itself, it should be reworked. It should be removed. That's really all I have to say on that. So, I do apologize for how long this video has gone on, but I would just like to reiterate that I don't dislike World of Tanks. I love World of Tanks. I love World of Tanks console. I just do not like the state that the game is in right now. And I don't like the path that the game development has taken, especially in 2016. It's just seemed like it's more about money grabbing and trying to get the extra dollars out of the paying players, rather than encouraging new players and retaining long-term players, especially the paying customers and the paying players. It's just seemed more like it's about getting new players in, trying to tantalize them with these flashy new bundles that are deals. Getting them to spend $50, and then they still get frustrated with the game after playing it for 2,000 battles, because why the hell does my tier 8 tank suck so much? This game's broken, or this game's rigged. I can't believe I spent $50 on it. And then they quit the game altogether. That's not good for the game, especially when there's more players leaving the game than there are actually coming in. It is what it is. So, as I said, I really do apologize for ranting so much, but I honestly felt it was important to bring up these issues that not just myself, but a lot of people within the community, just people in general game chat, people on the forums, people within various other World of Tanks console communities, other YouTubers, you name it. These are just issues that a lot of other people have brought up over time, and it's my fear that it's the culmination of all these issues combined is why I'm not really playing the game as much anymore. It's not any one particular little thing that I've listed here. It's all that stuff combined that makes me just look at the game and go, I really don't feel like playing this right now. And unfortunately, it's also a combination of even half of those put together for players that don't really know any better, making them leave. That's not good for the longevity of the game. I want this game to last for at least several more years, if at the very least so that I can maintain my YouTube channel focus on World of Tanks console. If nobody's playing the game, then nobody's going to watch my World of Tanks console videos, are they? Simply put. But I'm gonna stop it right there. I think I've been babbling for a good hour now, and as I said, I do apologize for the length of this video. I hope you guys better understand why I'm not playing this game as much as I used to be. As I said near the very beginning, there's going to be a link to There's going to be a link in the description below to a much shorter video by Terra Genocide, where him and a friend of his basically echo a lot of these sentiments that I've said. But this video is, about a month and a half old. They basically highlight some of the same issues that I've just gone over as to why they're not really playing the game very much, if at all. Same with me. So feel free to check it out if you got another half hour to kill. This has been Mobius Y. Thank you very much for watching and sticking it out this long if you have. If you want to just leave a comment below or call me all sorts of names that you can come up with in the next 20 seconds. I won't be offended because I'm sure I've made some of you mad by this point, either with the length of the video, anything that I've said, or any of the opinions that I hold towards this game. But in the meantime, hope to see you in my next video or on the battlefield. As always, happy tanking.